The black belt asked a single mom janitor to fight with him for fun. What happened next shocked the entire martial arts gym. "Hey, you sweeping up. How about a quick lesson for the class?" shouted Marcus Thorne from the center of the mat, his black belt gleaming under the gym's high-end track lighting. "I bet you've never seen a real kick in your life, right?" Aaliyah Jones stopped wiping the mirror with her squeegee and slowly looked up. At 35, she had been working as a janitor at that gym for only a month, always arriving after hours when the students had already left. But on that Friday night, the advanced striking class had run past the usual time. "I'm just trying to finish up the floor, Sensei," Aaliyah replied calmly, returning to a stubborn smear on the glass. "I don't want to get in your way." Marcus let out a loud, contemptuous laugh that echoed through the empty hall. "Everyone look at this. The lady's afraid to even step on the mat. Clearly, some people are only comfortable with a mop." The 10 students present laughed awkwardly, some visibly uncomfortable with the situation. What Marcus didn't know was that Aaliyah had spent the last 10 years trying to completely forget who she really was. 10 years since she left the ring after a devastating injury that changed her life forever. 10 years keeping a secret that not even her young daughter knew about. Dear viewers, before we begin, share where you're listening from and let us know what you think of Aaliyah's journey at the end. This is a story unlike what you have heard before. If you think you already know how this story ends, then you are mistaken. So stay till the end, because this story will surprise you and make you feel emotions you have not felt before. For those who are new here, welcome to the family. Please subscribe, say hello in the comments, and let's grow closer together. If this story touches you, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell for more stories like this. Now let us begin. "Come on, ma'am," Marcus continued, approaching her with the arrogant smile he used to intimidate beginners. "Just a little demonstration. How about showing my students the difference between someone who's dedicated their life to an art and someone who just cleans?" Aaliyah felt that familiar burn in her chest, like a powerful engine trying to turn over after years of neglect. Her eyes met Marcus's briefly, and for a split second, a chilling stillness radiated from her that made the instructor falter. "It's just an educational demonstration," Marcus insisted, now trying to hide the sudden uncertainty in his voice. "Nothing too serious, just to show the beginners why it's important to respect the hierarchy of the gym." Aaliyah set the bucket and squeegee on the floor and stood up slowly. Her movements had a terrifying economy and balance that was unnatural for a supposed non-athlete. Around the gym, the students stopped gathering their gear, realizing that the situation had shifted. "All right," Aaliyah said finally, her voice low and steady. "But when we're done, you're going to apologize to everyone here for turning the mat into an excuse for bullying." Marcus scoffed, but this time his laugh was brittle. "Apologize? You're going to be the one apologizing to your kneecaps when you meet them." What none of those people knew was that Aaliyah Jones had once been Aaliyah, the Razor Jones, 5-time world Muay Thai champion, renowned for her technical perfection. She had retired at the height of her career after a complex injury cost her everything, forcing her into anonymity to support her family. She had sworn never to fight again. But some vows must be broken when dignity is at stake. Marcus adjusted his black belt with a theatrical gesture, clearly savoring the attention. "Everyone gather around. You're about to see a practical demonstration of why the effort you put in here separates you from everyone else. Aaliyah watched as the 10 students formed a semicircle around the mat. Some seemed eager, others visibly uncomfortable. A young woman, Chloe Chun, muttered something to her classmate next to her, who just shook his head in disapproval. "Look, everyone," Marcus continued, gesturing dramatically. "Here we have a perfect example of someone who never understood the value of discipline. Elite gyms are not for, well, you know." Aaliyah felt the familiar twist of injustice in her gut. The difference was that now she didn't just feel anger. She felt control. "Sensei Marcus," Chloe interrupted timidly. "Perhaps we should just finish up. It's quite late." "And Chloe Chun, are you questioning my teaching methodology?" Marcus cut her off sharply. "Sit down and watch. You'll learn more in the next 5 minutes than in a month of conventional training." Aaliyah noticed how Marcus used the girl's full name, a clear display of aggressive authority. She also recognized the look of quiet conviction in Chloe's eyes. It was that conviction, not anger, that pushed Aaliyah forward. "So, Janitor," Marcus sneered, circling Aaliyah like a predator. "How about showing my students how to do a basic guard? Or is that too complicated for someone who only knows how to push a squeegee all day?" Aaliyah remained motionless, her eyes fixed on Marcus's center of gravity. "What's the matter?" Marcus insisted, now closing the distance. "Are you scared? Or are you just going to stand there like a statue?" That was when Marcus made his first fatal mistake. He pushed Aaliyah lightly on the shoulder, a seemingly harmless touch, but one that carried all the condescension of a man who believed his title made him untouchable. Aaliyah absorbed the push without moving an inch. Her core stability was absolute, and Marcus felt as if he had tried to move a foundation of steel. Marcus took Aaliyah's lack of movement as silent submission. His chest swelled, and he clapped his hands together with the loud, dismissive sound of a master demanding attention. "All right, everyone, let's make a semicircle. Move up," he ordered, ushering the 10 students closer to the now silent janitor and the untouched mat. "Pay attention. This is a valuable lesson in motivation." The students complied, their faces a mixture of fascination and discomfort. They had paid good money for this elite training, and now they were watching their sensei use a staff member as a prop. "You see her?" Marcus addressed the students, gesturing towards Aaliyah with open condescension. "She's here because she has to be, clocking out hours to clean up after your dedication. That's the difference between commitment and necessity." He didn't stop there, his voice dropping slightly to a confidential, sneering tone. "She's a great woman, I'm sure, but martial arts? That takes a certain type of discipline, a certain type of background. It takes resources she clearly doesn't have." Every word Marcus spoke was a tiny sharp jab directed not just at Aaliyah, but at the dignity of anyone who earned their living with their hands. Aaliyah watched him, her hand gripping the metal handle of her squeegee. Inside her, the beast she had caged a decade ago was pacing its cell. The old fire of the razor wanted to lash out, to silence the arrogance with a single controlled strike. She saw her daughter's face, the reason she endured this job, and the fire cooled, replaced by the crushing weight of her immediate goal. Keep the job, stay anonymous, provide security. Don't move. Just breathe and walk away. "Seriously, ma'am," Marcus pressed, stepping closer, closing the distance Aaliyah wanted to maintain. "I'll even teach you a basic defensive posture." It's for the class. Think of it as a bonus, since you clearly don't have the time or money to train properly. He winked at a few of the male students, who nervously chuckled. Aaliyah's eyes narrowed slightly, focusing not on his face, but on the precise line where his weight balanced between his front and back foot. The inner conflict was agonizing. Submit and lose her dignity, or fight and lose her lifeline. She was a single mother. Her daughter depended on her staying quiet. Yet, Marcus's arrogance was not just an attack on her. It was an attack on the young student, Chloe, and on every person struggling just to make ends meet. The need to protect her secret wrestled with the urge to protect her character. The silence stretched, thick and painful, until the breaking point seemed inevitable. The oppressive silence, punctuated only by Marcus's aggressive breathing, was suddenly broken by a quiet, clear voice. Sensei Marcus, Chloe Chin, the young woman who had muttered earlier, stepped slightly out of the semicircle. Her posture was straight, her hands held respectfully at her sides, but her eyes were firm. With respect, is this truly productive training? We paid for striking technique, not a lesson in class structure. Marcus turned, his face instantly hardening. The vein in his neck pulsed. And Chloe Chen, are you questioning the core philosophy of martial arts? That hard work deserves respect, and lack of effort deserves. I am questioning the application of respect, Chloe interrupted, her voice gaining strength, though it still trembled slightly. Aaliyah works here. She is a staff member. Humiliating a co-worker, regardless of their job title, isn't martial arts philosophy. It's just cruel. The rebuke hung in the air, delivered by one of his own students. Marcus's face twisted in fury and professional offense. He was about to unleash a tirade, but Aaliyah's attention had completely shifted from her internal struggle to the young woman. Chloe's courage struck Aaliyah with the force of a perfectly placed blow. It wasn't just the words. It was the vulnerable honesty in her eyes, the willingness to risk her position and comfort to defend a stranger. In that moment, Chloe mirrored the kind of integrity Aaliyah had always sought to embody, the quality she prayed her own daughter would possess. This was a fight worth stepping back into. This wasn't about her secret, her pride, or even her job. It was about defending a simple, universal principle of dignity. The internal conflict vanished. The fear of exposure for Aaliyah, the razor, was instantly overridden by the need to protect this young woman from Marcus's venom, and to prove Chloe's principled stand was right. A slow, almost imperceptible nod passed between Aaliyah and Chloe. Aaliyah put the squeegee down. The quiet clank of the metal on the polished floor seemed deafening. She took a single deliberate step forward, crossing the invisible boundary she had tried so hard to maintain. I accept your demonstration, Sensei Marcus, Aaliyah said, her voice now completely level, stripped of all deference. It was the voice of a professional who had just agreed to a contract. But the rules are simple. I don't use the equipment, and the first one to land a controlled strike that compromises the other's balance wins. No aggressive force. Marcus's snarl turned into a triumphant, predatory grin. Done. Get on the mat, cleaner. Let's see how well you sweep with your feet. He had no idea he had just agreed to spar with a ghost. Marcus's grin widened with smug certainty. Apologize to Chloe? After she undermined my class? You really are delusional, cleaner. But fine. Let's get this over with. He stepped onto the mat, taking a wide, aggressive stance, already savoring the easy humiliation he was about to inflict. Aaliyah ignored him completely for a crucial moment. She walked past the mop bucket and directly onto the clean, cool mat. The transition was instant and absolute. The janitor, the tired single mother, vanished. Her shoulders dropped, not in relaxation, but in perfect alignment, sinking her center of gravity lower. Her back straightened, correcting a decade of stooping over a mop handle. Her feet, which moments ago had been covered in worn, rubber-soled work shoes, repositioned themselves with the terrifying, habitual geometry of an elite fighter. They were spaced precisely shoulder-width apart, perpendicular to Marcus, ready to pivot or anchor. Her hands rose subtly, one slightly forward, one protecting her jaw, but relaxed with an unnerving economy of motion. Every muscle from her neck to her calves seemed to switch on, not for brute force, but for instantaneous, reflexive control. The 10 students, watching from the edge, suddenly fell silent. They had seen hundreds of people take this ready stance, but Aaliyah's was different. It possessed a quality that transcended technique. It held the quiet, palpable danger of something perfected through countless battles. It was the stance of an apex predator. Chloe, the only one who had challenged Marcus, gasped quietly, a hand covering her mouth. She had seen something shift in Aaliyah's eyes, the weight of 10 years of guilt and fear giving way to the cold, analytical focus of a champion. Marcus, however, was blind to the transformation. He saw only a woman in ill-fitting cleaning clothes taking an amateurish, stiff pose. He laughed, a short, dismissive burst of air. "Is that your guard? Did you learn that from a cartoon?" He bounced lightly on the balls of his feet, ready to toy with her. But the air in the room had changed. It no longer felt like a gym. It felt like a ring before the bell. The students exchanged nervous glances. They were no longer spectators of a joke, but witnesses to an impending storm. The janitor was gone. Only the razor remained. Marcus decided to start the demonstration with a show of power. He let out a loud exhale, took a wide step, and launched a fast, powerful teep, a front push kick, aimed directly at Aaliyah's midsection. It was a technically sound kick, one that would knock the wind out of any untrained person and send them stumbling back across the mat. But Aaliyah wasn't there. As the kick shot out, Aaliyah performed a subtle, single-inch shift of her weight, sinking deeper into her stance and rotating her hips almost imperceptibly. The razor edge of Marcus's foot passed through the air where her stomach had been a millisecond before. The kick missed by a margin so thin, the students could hear the whoosh of air displacement. Yet Aaliyah's body remained completely untouched. She hadn't jumped, hadn't stumbled, hadn't flinched. She simply flowed around the attack. "Telegraphing the attack," Aaliyah stated calmly, her voice a low murmur that nevertheless cut through the ringing silence. "Your hip rotation is too slow. Too much power, not enough speed. You'll be punished for that in the 3rd round, Sensei." Marcus froze, his foot still partially extended in the air. He blinked, stunned by the impossible evasion. He tried to hide his shock with a sneer. "That was luck. Try this." He retracted his foot and immediately launched into a rapid-fire combination, a jab, cross, and roundhouse kick sequence. It was fast and perfectly executed, the kind of professional sequence that left students breathless just watching. The jab and cross were met with minimal, economical movements. A subtle duck below the first punch, a slight slip inside the second. The final roundhouse, a blurring blur of motion aimed at her head, was met with a precise, almost disdainful lean back. Marcus's shin passed inches from Aaliyah's nose, and she used the momentum of his miss to make her next critique. Shoulder too high on the cross, she analyzed, her eyes still holding that chilling, analytical focus. And your kick leaves your base exposed. Anyone with proper training can compromise your planted leg right now. Marcus's frustration was now visible, his breathing growing ragged. He was performing his best techniques, honed over years, and the janitor was treating them like beginner mistakes in a classroom. His movements were growing desperate and wild, while Aaliyah's remained small, graceful, and utterly lethal. The students weren't looking at Marcus's black belt anymore. They were staring at the quiet woman in the cleaning shoes. The mocking laughter and dismissive critiques had pushed Marcus to his limit. His face flushed red beneath his tan, and his chest heaved with suppressed rage. He wasn't just sparring anymore. He was desperately trying to reassert his authority over this silent, unnerving woman. Enough with the games, Marcus roared, abandoning technique for brute aggression. He launched himself forward, initiating a wild, desperate combination. 2 heavy hooks followed by a clumsy double-leg takedown attempt. It was a panic move, powerful, but predictable, leaving his entire lower body exposed. Aaliyah saw it all in slow motion. The moment Marcus committed to the hooks, she swayed back just enough to create a small gap, allowing the punches to whistle harmlessly past her ears. Then, as his weight drove forward for the takedown, she moved not away, but in. With the terrifying quickness of a striking snake, Aaliyah shifted her weight to her planted left foot and delivered a single, focused strike. It wasn't a powerful, bone-breaking kick she was famous for. It was a tap. Her right shin made contact with Marcus's outer thigh, hitting the peroneal nerve with the surgical precision of a champion. The sound was not a heavy thud, but a sharp, dry thwack. Marcus didn't cry out or fall from a push. His legs simply ceased to function. The knee buckled instantly, his powerful momentum collapsing into the ground. He landed with a loud, sprawling thump, face down on the pristine mat, his hands grasping uselessly at the thigh that had betrayed him. Aaliyah stood perfectly still, her leg instantly retracted, her breathing even. She hadn't moved more than a foot in total, yet she had completely neutralized a black belt in one non-aggressive, controlled touch. The silence that followed was absolute, heavier than any noise. The demonstration was over. Marcus Thorne, the arrogant instructor, was a heap of compromised balance and stunned ego on the floor, taken out by the gym janitor. Marcus lay on the mat, his face a mask of disbelief and rapidly mounting pain. The sudden, absolute compromise of his leg was a physical shock, but the greater shock was the realization that the move was not amateurish. It was masterful. The janitor hadn't hit hard, but she had hit with impossible, surgical precision. He was a black belt, yet he had been clinically disassembled by a woman in cleaning shoes. Humiliation burned hotter than the nerve pain in his thigh. The students surrounding the mat remained frozen, their silence amplifying the reality of Marcus's defeat. They had watched a world of difference separate the powerful, arrogant instructor from the quiet woman he had ridiculed. It was Chloe Chun who finally moved. Her eyes were wide, but not with surprise, with confirmation. She quickly pulled her phone from her gym bag, her fingers flying across the screen. She had a theory, a wild, desperate guess based on the impossible control Aaliyah had just demonstrated. Wait a minute, Chloe muttered, holding the phone up, her voice thick with revelation. That stance, that precision. No way. It can't be. She looked up at Aaliyah, then back at the screen, her gaze locking on a decade-old image. It's Aaliyah Jones, Chloe announced, her voice ringing with stunned conviction across the stunned gym. Aaliyah, the Razor Jones. 5-time world Muay Thai champion. Undefeated in the bantamweight division. She retired 10 years ago after a leg injury. Chloe scrolled quickly to a video clip. They called her the Razor because she never wasted a single move. Her kicks were always about leverage, not power. The name hit the room like a sonic boom. Marcus, trying to push himself up, froze instantly. His pain was forgotten, replaced by a seismic shift in reality. He was a black belt. Aaliyah was a legend. He had tried to humiliate a world champion over a janitorial job. The shame was absolute, instantly crushing his arrogance under the weight of Aaliyah's true title. Aaliyah simply stood there, perfectly still, letting the secret she had guarded for a decade pour out onto the mat. The consequences were irrelevant now. The fight for dignity had been won. Marcus, faced not with a janitor, but with a living ghost from the history books of the sport, collapsed back onto his elbow, his face pale with utter, crushing shock. His reputation had just been shattered with a single, precise tap. Marcus pushed himself up slowly, wincing as he put weight on his compromised leg. The arrogance was completely gone, replaced by a profound, sickly horror. He didn't see Aaliyah Jones, the janitor. He saw Aaliyah the Razor, the legend whose fights he had studied in college. He swallowed hard, his voice raspy with genuine contrition. Sensei Jones, I don't know what to say. I am genuinely sorry. For the mockery, for the disrespect, for everything I said about your profession. I was wrong. Completely and shamefully wrong. He risked a glance at Chloe. And Chloe, I owe you an apology too. You were right. What I did was cruel, not training. Aaliyah kept her stance, her eyes still steady. She allowed a moment for the apology to settle. Then, with a sigh, she finally relaxed her posture. The terrifying champion was replaced by the exhausted single mother, but her authority remained absolute. I accept your apology, Marcus, Aaliyah said, her voice soft but firm. But your apology is not enough. She stepped closer to him, lowering her voice so only the ring of students could hear. You apologize now because you know who I am. You apologize because I humiliated you with a technique you couldn't touch. But if I were just Aaliyah Jones, the janitor with no name, would you still be on your knee, showing respect? Her question hung in the air, the true moral pivot of the story. Your respect wasn't earned by my fighting, Marcus, she continued, her voice gaining strength. It was denied because I was cleaning. That is the true difference between a fighter and a martial artist. A fighter wins matches. A martial artist upholds dignity. Chloe, tears welling in her eyes, stepped forward, her respect for Aaliyah eclipsing any fear of Marcus. Sensei Jones, she pleaded, using the title Aaliyah deserved. Please, you can't leave. We need a coach like you. Someone who teaches the art, not just the aggression. Our gym needs you. I need you. The quiet plea was the final invitation, the recognition Aaliyah hadn't even realized she was waiting for. She looked from Chloe to the other students, who were nodding their heads in stunned agreement. She had found a way to use her power to earn a living with dignity, not just anonymity. 3 months later, the elite gym had undergone a subtle but significant transformation. The atmosphere, once thick with Marcus Thorne's competitive arrogance, was now one of quiet, disciplined respect. The change was physical, but mostly it was moral. Aaliyah Jones was no longer just the janitor. Convinced by Chloe Chun and the other students, the gym owner, who was thoroughly embarrassed by the viral clip Chloe had recorded, offered Aaliyah a contract. She was now the advanced techniques coach, specializing in controlled power, balance, and precision footwork. She taught not just kicks, but the philosophy of using maximum effect with minimum effort, proving that true strength was found in discipline and character, not aggression. Marcus Thorne, conversely, had seen his professional life crumble. The video of the janitor dropping the black belt with a single touch, quickly identified as the legendary Aaliyah, the Razor Jones, circulated rapidly through the martial arts world. He lost half his student base in the first 2 weeks, and his reputation for technical mastery was replaced by a reputation for humiliating hubris. He was eventually let go and forced to teach at a much smaller, less reputable dojo outside the city, carrying a humility that was not chosen, but brutally enforced by public shame. Sensei Aaliyah, Chloe said one evening after Aaliyah's class on proper body alignment, "Thank you for staying. You taught us that true power doesn't need a loud voice or a high belt to be recognized." Aaliyah smiled, organizing the sparring gear she had once been paid to clean up. "The best lesson I can teach is the one Marcus failed to learn. Never judge anyone by their uniform or their bank balance. Everyone carries a story that can surprise you." She had found a way to use her talent to provide for her daughter with dignity, finally breaking her vow of silence and forgiveness. Justice had come, silent and precise, like the touch of a master. Dear viewers, so what do you think? Did Aaliyah, the Razor Jones, the single mother janitor, get the justice and recognition she deserved? Could you stand up to arrogant authority, risking your livelihood and your decade-long secret, just to defend the dignity of a fellow worker and a brave student? What makes someone a real master? The belt they wear or the respect they show? Drop a comment and let me know. And tell me, have you ever been someone's Chloe Chin? The one who spoke up when everyone else was silent, who saw past the cleaning uniform to the competence and character underneath? Or have you needed someone to see you that way? Past the job title, past the exhaustion, straight to the skill and discipline you kept hidden? We all need people who value character over status, who choose to intervene when the arrogant storm hits, who move mountains with a single precise word or a single perfect kick because dignity can't wait. If you love this story about a world champion who found her way back to the mat with a mop and a squeegee, about an arrogant instructor who found humility on his backside, about a single mother who discovered that family security isn't just a paycheck, it's standing up for the truth, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. I post new high-stakes redemption thrillers every day, and you don't want to miss what's waiting in the next story. Like this video if you want more stories about quiet champions, about enemies learning painful lessons, about mothers who rewrite the rules of survival, about one single perfect touch that changes a life. Your likes tell me you crave more stories about real humanity, disciplined, unspoken, unbreakable humanity. This is Blissful Stories, where titles are earned through character, not rank, where a single stance can shift fates, and where the best redemption stories begin with someone brave enough to fight when every instinct screams walk away. Until tomorrow, remember, you don't have to wear a belt to be a master. Sometimes all it takes is one perfect stance, one brave plea, one whispered, "I accept your demonstration." Be someone's Chloe. Answer someone's plea. Change someone's night.